death. We gas ourselves up, but we short on breath. Talking about we eating, but who we really cooking. Dreaming about greens, but ain't nobody looking. No land, no acres, no seeds in the ground. When the hunger hits, who's gonna be around? We starving every day, and it just ain't the food. Feeding the hood garbage, got 'em acting a fool. We flossing with rides, stunting with chains, but these bars we spitting just bring more pain. We guilty as hell, preaching all these lies, selling debt to the kids, and we acting surprised. We commercialize the pain, broadcast the grief, tell the youth to hustle, but hide the beef. We glorify the trap, invite them to the flames, just like Reagan brought the crack on planes. Back in the 80s when the streets got soaked, my people, my brothers, all got choked. Reagan said no trades, but we know the deal. He left us in the dirt, man, that shit was real. I was just a shorty watching it unfold, old enough to see how we got sold. War on drugs, but it was war on us. Cops on our necks, no love, no trust. They labeled us thugs, beast on the block, made us kiss the pavement while they cleaned our clock. Prison became business thanks to Reagan's game. Free labor is the truth in America's name. Slavery's dead, man. That's just a word. Read the 13th Amendment, it's still absurd. They lock us in cages, serving time for life. Double digits for wisdom, cutting sharp like a knife. I'm here to say, the chains in the air, it's time we break free, start showing we care. No more flexing for nothing, no more selling out. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. And today I'm going to be talking about the illusion of justice and the reality of power. But before we get into all that, here is Locksmith with Hypocrites, and we'll be right back right after this.
Back row. I love you, Poppy.
I'm just gonna say what I feel. Listen, I'ma stand on my position. I've always been a man and never ran for my position. I've always took a stand to expand on contradictions. How you cancel Kyrie but not your Amazon subscription. I'm from the base, so it's relevant. If we condemn him for the link, go after Bezos for selling it. I do not agree with his rhetoric, but we should scrutinize both guys, not just the side with melanin. Now we about to take another elegant. It's costly when your gene pool is out of pocket, they relishing. Every misstep we take abrupt, so you can understand it takes less than 4 quarters to break a buck. LeVar Burton, we all searching for proof. Get caught with a black thought and they strangle you by your roots. They dangled us by a noose. If you knew better than you measure misinformation from truth. Not with the news fed us. They have to bait you in order to aggravate you. Continue to sell trauma, then tell you they advocate you. There's only 2 ways we get to reach success. Either promote death or let them put you in a dress. We kill each other cause we focused on the bands. Buck shots and take off, the fans posted on the gram. Self-inflicted violence, desensitized from homicide. Drama brings viewers and viewers create dollar signs. You know how much this country loves narcissists. We deify stars and pray at the feet of pharmacists. Prescription drugs, pop music is well kept. We medicate our kids, these rappers become the sale reps. And the active ingredients is obedience. Instead of microphones in the styrofoam, there's lenience. We hypersexualize the naive, get them high and hide the intent, and the BPM is the medium. We all should be accountable for slander. Keep the same tone for those with a Jones and gerrymander. Some of us scared to answer. Ignorance is paradise. Got a yellow tapeworm and these bullets are parasites. Stuck in a careless fight, looking elsewhere brings anorexic pipe dreams with no healthcare means. How many heads were turning when Mississippi was burning and Brett Favre got a bag? That's a welfare queen. I repel those schemes and scams out. You were given the upper hand, now you handling handouts. Too late, but the plan's out. When you black, it's a risk. It be more than a play sheet that they slap on your wrist. My reaction is this: don't expect me to play it still when you constantly move the goal and unlevel the playing field. You point the finger, deflecting your impotence with your social media mob that's flooded with hypocrites. Rappers get convicted from lyrics, it's like a cheat code just to be paid in full. Now you staring at a Rico. Look up underneath those who created the climate. If you're not the one that's selling this sickness, then you're a client. You know how much this country loves narcissists. We deify stars and pray at the feet of pharmacists. Prescription drugs, pop music, we love it. Ingest in our bloodstream and sell it back to the public.
locksmith, hypocrites. Damn, I really, but so today we're going to be talking about illusion of justice, right? And but before we get into all that, I want to play you something. If people don't know, Nicole Mitchell is being sentenced today. Uh, there was a lot of back and forth going back between the prosecution and the defense, but I want to play because she should be sentenced. I'd say by 10:30. They took a 15-minute break about 5 minutes ago, but I still say that. So I'm gonna play Nicole Mitchell's part first, uh, and then we'll talk about it.
To be here today. The things said and the harm I cause are real things. And I completely abide by whatever you feel is fair. It's wrong to hurt anybody, but especially, in my opinion, someone you love. And I can go through a list of horrible decisions that I made. But there's two that stick with me. And the first even if I had been in and out, I broke into her home. I was selfish. I was worried about my own feelings and a possible confrontation or hearing something that might have hurt me, and I did something ridiculous and illegal and selfish. And the second thing is, once I was there and she woke up and bumped into me and felt me and started to yell, I thought she knew it was me, and I was a coward, and I ran. And I deserved whatever she would have yelled at me. Whatever she had to say at that point would have been 100% justified. And by handling things that way, I didn't go back. I didn't check on her. I was only thinking about myself. And it contributed to the eventual paranoia, which I absolutely believe is true. If in the middle of the horrible wrong I was committing, I would have thought about her and her state of mind and not my own. Even if this outcome was exactly the same, I think it would have made a difference in the paranoia and fear I know she believes. I cared about her and I wanted to help. And when things were down, I thought about myself instead. And then made continuous bad decisions from there. I tell my kids that by the time you have to say you're sorry,
It's too late.
it's kind of already too late. You've already done something. That you need to be very careful with your actions and your words. Because sometimes there are things that are so big you can't take them back. You can't fix them.
Correct.
And this is one of those situations. I don't think there is anything I can say or do that will ever be big enough to repair the harm that I've done. And I wish I could be saying this all in person, and I understand why I cannot be. And that's my fault too. All I can say is I hope she finds it in her heart to forgive me today. I don't think I probably deserve it. I still love her. My kids still love her. If she ever wants a relationship again, that door is open. But I messed everything up. And I did something wrong. And I will work on being a better person, and with whatever is decided here today, trying to use that time to reflect on how I can possibly repair this. Very sorry. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. All right, folks, we're going to take a 15-minute recess and then return and deliver the sentence.
Yeah, the thing of it is, she is correct on, a lot of the, statements she was making. That is the truth. There is decisions that have consequences, and sometimes those consequences we might not agree with, but they're for our actions. And then we have to know that, that's the thing of it is, what a lot of people don't understand is that we have freedom of speech. We might not like somebody's speech. We might not like what they have to say, but they have the freedom to say that. That doesn't mean that we have to be, but there is consequences behind that. You can get fired, you can get suspended, you can get, jumped out on the streets, a lot of things. But again, now, if a person gets triggered by those words, they have to understand that if they do confront or do get violent with that person, they have to understand there's consequences behind that. And those consequences sometimes can be deadly. Sometimes that can be paying a debt to society and in prison, which I don't feel like you're paying a debt, but that's for a whole nother conversation. But I want to get into Malcolm X. And this was a speech that he made in 1963. I think I played, some of the speeches in the past for you. But this one, here's the thing of it is, a lot of people are bringing up, Malcolm X because of Charlie Kirk, or MLK because of Charlie Kirk. And I want to play something that really puts everything in perspective, because it's not just the left and it's not just the right. You know what I'm saying? It's not just the Republicans and it's not just the Democrats. It's both of them. It's both of them together. So what I really want people to start doing is stop separating them, because it's the same knife. It doesn't matter if it's one side of the blade or the other. It's the same political party. It's two sides of a blade on the same sword, on the same knife.
In this crooked game of power politics here in America, the Negro, namely the race problem, integration, civil rights issue, are all nothing but tools used by the whites who call themselves liberals against another group of whites who call themselves conservatives, either to get into power or to retain power. Among whites here in America, the political teams are no longer divided into Democrats and Republicans. The whites who are now struggling for control of the American political throne are divided into liberal and conservative camps. The white liberals from both parties cross party lines to work together toward the same goal, and white conservatives from both parties do likewise. The white liberal differs from the white conservative only in one way. The liberal is more deceitful, more hypocritical than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. And by winning the friendship and support of the Negro, the white liberal is able to use the Negro as a pawn or a weapon in this political football game that is constantly raging between the white liberals and the white conservatives. The American Negro is nothing but a political football, and the white liberals control this ball through tricks or tokenism, false promises of integration and civil rights. In this game of deceiving and using the American Negro, the white liberals have complete cooperation of the Negro civil rights leader, who sell our people out for a few crumbs of token recognition, token gains, token progress. In the New York Tribune, in an editorial dated February the 5th, 1960, they pointed out that out of 11 million qualified Negro voters, only 2,700,000 actually take time to vote. This means that, roughly speaking, only 3 million out of the 11 million Negroes who are qualified to vote take an active part, and the remaining 8 million remain voluntarily inactive. And yet it is this small minority, the 3 million Negro voters, who help determine who will be the next president. If who will be the next president can be influenced by 3 million Negro voters, it is easy to see why the presidential candidates of both political parties put on such a false show with the Civil Rights Bill and promises of integration. They must impress the 3 million voting Negroes who are the actual integration seekers. And if so much fuss is made over these 3 million integration seekers, what would the presidential candidates have to do to appease the 8 million non-voting Negroes if they ever decided to become politically active? They hold the balance of power. Who are the 8 million non-voting Negroes? What do they want? And why don't they vote? The 3 million Negro voters are the so-called middle-class Negroes, or high-class Negroes, or uppity Negroes, who are referred to by the late Howard University sociology professor Evelyn Frazier as the black bourgeoisie, who have been educated to think as patriotic individualists with no racial pride whatsoever, who believe in and look forward to the future integrated, intermarried society that is constantly being promised to them by the Negro politician. And therefore, this integration-minded 3 million minority remain an active part of the white-controlled political parties. But it must never be overlooked that these 3 million Negro integration seekers are only a small minority of the 11 million qualified Negro voters. The 8 million non-voting Negroes are the majority. the downtrodden black masses. They have refused to vote. They've refused to take a part in politics because they reject the Uncle Tom approach of the clergy politician leadership that has been handpicked for the so-called Negroes by the white man himself. This clergy politician leadership does not speak for the Negro majority. They don't speak for the black masses. They speak for the black bourgeoisie, the brainwashed, white-minded, middle-class minority, who, because they are ashamed of their race, because they are ashamed of being black and don't want to be identified with black, they are seeking to lose this black identity by mixing and mingling and intermarrying and integrating with the white society. The race problem cannot be solved by listening to the white-minded, brainwashed minority. The white man must try to learn what the black majority wants. The president would be wise to try and learn what the black masses want. And the only way to find this out is by listening to the man who speaks for the black masses. And I can declare to you tonight and to the entire world that the man here in America who speaks for the majority, the downtrodden, dissatisfied black masses, is this same man who so many thousands of our people are flocking toward to see and hear. This same Mr. Muhammad who is labeled by you as a black supremacist and as a racist and as an extremist. If the 3 million middle-class Negroes are casting their ballots for integration and intermarriage, what do the non-voting black masses who are in the majority want? Find out what the black masses want, and then perhaps America's grave race problem can be solved.
That is very, very, very interesting. So they are back with Nicole Mitchell's sentencing, and that's what I want to play for you real quick.
Intent to commit theft of an occupied home and possession of burglary tools. Everyone deserves to be safe and feel secure in their home. Where we live is our sanctuary. The home is the one place people can and should feel completely safe, secure, and private. Which is why intrusions to this highly valued space is an attack to one's safety and privacy. As we have heard today and throughout the trial, your intrusion to Carol Mitchell's home has caused her to fear personal safety, caused a lost sense of security, unnecessary anxiety, and continued emotional distress. The Minnesota burglary statutes are clear and unambiguous. Minnesota Statute Section 609.582, Subdivision 1 paren A and Subdivision 1A identify that a person convicted of the statute must serve 180 days in jail. In Minnesota Statute Section 609.583 directs that a court shall presume for disposition a stay of execution. A stay of imposition may be granted only if accompanied by a statement on the record of the reasons for it. And this court is not persuaded to sentence below the 180 days mandated. Nor am I persuaded today to deviate from the presumption by the reasons offered to stay in position of your sentence. You have experienced collateral consequences in your personal life, but this is the result of your decision to commit this burglary. There is no legal authority that allows or instructs this court to weigh those consequences and reduce the criminal sentence mandated by statute.
Damn.
You have requested that your sentence be stayed to allow you to challenge State v. Roush's interpretation of Minnesota Statute 609.582. Rule 2802, Subdivision 7 of the Minnesota Rules of Criminal Procedure states, if a defendant is sentenced to incarceration a court must not grant release pending appeal from a judgment of conviction unless the defendant establishes several specific factors. That the appeal is not frivolous or taken for delay, and that there are no substantial risk the defendant will fail to appear after the appeal, or that the defendant is likely to commit a serious crime, intimidate witnesses, or otherwise interfere with the administration of justice. Establishing these factors does not entitle a defendant to release pending appeal. It merely sets the baseline of what is required before a court may even consider granting such a request. As State v. Roush makes clear, there is no ambiguity in Minnesota Statute Section 609.82, Subdivision 1A. A person convicted of burglary of an occupied dwelling must be committed for 6 months to either the Commissioner of Corrections or the workhouse. When the legislature uses the word must, it intends for a statute to impose a mandatory condition unless another intention clearly appears. Here, no other intention appears. State v. Roush has been controlling precedent for 14 years, and there is no reason for this court to believe it would be overturned. It remains good law today, and this court is bound to follow it. Under State v. Roush, the 6-month jail sentence for first-degree burglary is mandatory. And this court is not persuaded that there is merit to your argument to stay sentenced to appeal. The request to hold your jail sentence in abeyance pending this appeal is denied. Nicole and Mitchell, if you'd please rise.
Oh, sure. Here it goes.
As to count 1, I hereby adjudicate you guilty of the crime of burglary in the first degree in violation of Minnesota Statute Section 609.582, Subdivision 1, Paren A. It carries with it a maximum penalty of 20 years imprisonment and payment of a fine of $35,000 or both. Therefore, as punishment, you are hereby committed to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections of this state for a period of 21 months.
Damn!
However, execution of this sentence is stayed and you are placed on supervised probation for 5 years.
Wow.
Subject to all the rules and regulations established by the Department of Corrections, the 10 standard conditions of probation, which include follow all state and federal laws, tell your probation officer within 72 hours if you have contact with law enforcement, if you are charged with any new criminal offenses, if you change your address, employment, or telephone number, you are to cooperate with the search of your person, residence, vehicle, workplace, property, and things as directed by your probation agent. You are to sign all releases of information as directed, and you are to give a DNA sample when directed. You are not to possess any firearms, ammunitions, or explosives. And you may be seated as I go through the rest of your sentence, Ms. Mitchell. And you'll be required with these additional conditions. You are ordered to serve 180 days in the Becker County Jail. I will authorize Huber work release privileges. Since you are employed, I will allow you to serve your time at the Ramsey County Jail so that you may keep your job and have income to pay potential restitution and fine. You must pay the cost of your confinement in the Ramsey County Jail. The Becker County taxpayers will not be responsible for the cost of your incarceration. So that you may qualify for work release at Ramsey County, I will allow you to report on or before 6 p.m. October 1st, 2025. I took that as being the first day after September 30th, which is you were to receive your first paycheck from employment, and that was from the sentencing memorandum. However, Mr. DeCray has identified today that there's some uncertainty as to when you will receive your first paycheck. So if you cannot meet the requirements and you don't have a paycheck by October 1st, you are to report the first day that you do receive that paycheck. However, I will not go beyond the 15 days as identified. So if it happens to be the second, that is the day that you report, but not beyond the 8th of October, which is the 15 days that is requested. And if you don't have that, you cannot qualify. Then you are to report to the Becker County Jail no later than 6 p.m. on that date of October 8th. You must coordinate serving your time with both the Becker County Jail and Ramsey County Jail facilities in advance. The Becker County Jail will need confirmation of your arrival to Ramsey County. You need to make sure that you're coordinating with those two jails to have this accomplished. The state
Well, I don't really care about that. But damn, that's crazy. I don't know why it didn't finish. Do not. I don't know. I definitely wasn't watching the live, so I must have just ended. Let's see. Let's see. Oh yeah, so there wasn't much. So basically, she just got to do the 6 months of jail time, but her sentence is stayed for the 21 months. But also 5 years of probation, which isn't kind of, it is shocking to me. I would say I thought that, normally that was for somebody that would have been in Minneapolis or, in a rural area and be that color, the sentence wouldn't have been that light, I feel like. But hey, that is our judicial system, and I guess it sees it as fair, even though it definitely isn't. I want to talk about Walter Hudson, one on Alpha News, and him and Liz Collins had a conversation, and they're talking about he wants the feds to investigate fraud because Minnesota government is a racketeering operation. So he wants them to put a RICO charge on Walls, and I'm not against that. That is something that I have. I think me and Robert, it's been more Robert talking about a RICO like 3-4 years ago. So this isn't something that is, to me, it is not new. And I believe that this was laid out to Walter years ago before he even did this Alpha News interview. And the thing about it is, what I really want to be, I want to be honest right here, right, is what we did was show how they were being fraudulent, how they were doing DBAs. So it basically, that whole scheme, it works for anything. It works for fraud. Feeding Our Future. It worked on autism centers. It worked on housing centers. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we have to be looking at everything and be like, damn, because I see a lot of people are getting shocked because you're seeing some businesses. I shouldn't even call them businesses because a lot of them are getting Medicaid payments or, even though they're not basically a nonprofit, they're a for-profit, but we're getting Medicaid. And you can see that a lot of them are closing down, or some of them are closing down because they're under investigation. They're not getting any more money. That just happened in Rochester with one of the, you could call and get a ride for your medical appointments. Yeah, they closed down. Cozy Customs, whatever the hell it was called, Cozy. Yeah, they closed down. And one of the reasons is because they were under investigation. There is going to be more people under an indictment. Just this week, I think you'll see between 10 and 20 people that have new indictments. Yeah, I'm just sometime today, all the way up until Friday, you will see more people being charged for, first I think you're going to see the autisms this week, and then next week you're going to see HSS indictments. So I'm tired of people being, oh, we're surprised. No, you're not. Here's the thing, if it was, people have been talking about it. You didn't want to listen to the messengers. You didn't want to listen to the message. because who the messenger was. And that is a real big issue. So I want to get into Liz Collins and Walter Hudson.
Dots and calling on the feds to investigate. Next. State Representative Walter Hudson is my guest, a Republican representing the Albertville area in Minnesota. Thank you again for joining us once again, Representative Hudson. Always good to see you.
Always a pleasure to join you, Liz. Appreciate all the work that you and your colleagues do.
Right back at you. You're a member of the House Fraud Prevention Committee. So in many ways, you've really had a front row seat to the massive amount of fraud and the questionable politics at work with all of this here. You just recently courageously said on social media that you believe there is a racketeering enterprise in Minnesota, one that's been paying people off essentially for their loyalty to the DFL, the Democratic Party of Minnesota. And you're convinced of this?
Yes, I am personally convinced of it, which is a distinction from being able to prove it. I think the necessity to have all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted before raising credible suspicion that that is in fact what's going on is not necessary. We need to apply a certain degree of logic and reason and abide by our lying eyes, right? And recognize that there are certain patterns here that make it very clear that there's something insidious going on.
Just to be clear here about the massive amount of fraud we are talking about, Acting U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson basically said that the entire Minnesota Housing Stabilization Services Program, HSS, is fraud.
The HSS program is riddled with fraud.
He just announced 8 indictments, but said there are about 1,000 investigations related to just HSS alone. Feeding Our Future, another case of fraud that has led to 70 indictments so far. There's also been fraud charges related to autism services, transportation services. You know this well, the list goes on and on. But with more than $1 billion in fraud, that is the total that, again, Acting U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson has mentioned in all of these government programs, it seems politicians and the media, they try to avoid this common thread. However, you've courageously pointed out that it is basically all of the fraud being perpetuated by members of the Somali community. How does this happen?
Well, that's the question, right? Because it's very, first of all, just to put a point on what you just said, it goes beyond HSS. The current focus is HSS because that's what they're currently prosecuting. But what Thompson said yesterday is that all of our waiver programs are essentially fraud programs. That's how he described them, that they are programs that function to produce fraud. He said that the majority of the dollars that are being taken out of your pocket and applied to this supposedly benevolent purpose are actually going to bad actors who are using our state's benevolence in order to enrich themselves. And so the question becomes, how does that happen? Like, how is it possible? And it's only happening here to the degree that it is happening here in the state of Minnesota. We were the first ones to do this HSS thing. We knew it was experimental. We knew we were coloring outside the box of what had been done in the past. How does this get set up? And then, as Thompson said yesterday, on day one, you've got hundreds of people immediately filing business filings and getting leases where there's a dozen of them in the same building, and they're just all committed to being fake organizations that don't actually do anything for anyone but just build the state. You are asking me to suspend all disbelief, to accept the premise that this is all just one giant coincidence. Just coincidentally? I mean, if I were to go across the street right now and ask a random neighbor, hey, just for research purposes, if you had to right now, without looking it up right now, go and start a business, would you have any idea how to do it? I'm guessing the answer would be no. That's why we have a whole section of the Secretary of State's website showing people how to set up a business. You either already know because you've done it before, you have that institutional knowledge, or somebody has to guide you through the process. And so that's the question that I'm pivoting to at this point is, who guided all of these people through the process of how to make these business filings, how to set up these business structures, how to get these leases, how to set it up. This is a project. How did you go about setting it up? And I will not accept that the answer is no one.
Unlike many others, Representative Hudson, you're not just naming names, you're not just talking about fraud, you're actually trying to do something about it. In fact, you recently called on the United States Attorney General Pam Bondi to take action. You also said she should, which I love this part, buy a second residence and make her career here in Minnesota because she will never run out of people to prosecute. But unfortunately, it seems that everywhere you look, there's fraud. What really needs to happen here to put all of this to an end?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, Thompson made it very clear yesterday in his press conference. He said that we're not going to be able to prosecute our way out of this. I mean, many of his statements that he made yesterday were absolutely stunning. He suggested that he could keep 1,000 prosecutors busy in the state of Minnesota. He has 25, and only 5 of them are dedicated to these fraud cases. So what that indicates to me is that the true level, 2 things. First of all, the true level of the amount of fraud that's going on beneath the surface, it's like an iceberg. We only see the tip of it. We have no idea how deep this thing goes. And number 2 is that injustice will stand. We know that many people who did this to us are never going to face any accountability for it because we lack the prosecutorial resources to make it happen. So it's a little bit like if for some reason you had your hose from outside your house, feeding through a window and it was flooding everything. The first answer to that is not, oh, gee, let me go get a mop. The first answer to that is to turn off the hose. Go to the source, turn off the source of the flooding. The source of the flooding is the state of Minnesota continuing to fund these fraudulent programs. We shut down HSS. The administration felt so much pressure, and I suspect so much concern about what might be discovered if we were able to take a closer look at it, that they decided to shut that program down. Why are any of these programs running right now? After Joe Thompson's press conference yesterday, every single one of these programs should be immediately and indefinitely shut down. That's how you turn off the hose. And then in terms of prosecution, we may not be able to catch everybody, but boy, oh boy, we better be going after the big actors, who I suspect has been coordinating this, has taught them how to do it, provided them with material support, and the political apparatus that has benefited from it. Just objectively, all right, take all my suspicions and just set them aside. Let's say I'm just advocating some paranoid conspiracy and nobody had anything to do with this whatsoever other than the perpetrators. It is unquestionable that the Democrat Party and their candidates have benefited from this fraud. Who do you think these people are voting for? Who do you think they're contributing to in terms of political campaigns? The Democrat Party in the state of Minnesota has benefited directly from this fraud. And whether that was their intention or not, it certainly raises questions that deserve to be deeply investigated, and they're not going to be investigated by anybody with any position of authority in the state of Minnesota because Minnesota is overwhelmingly controlled by Democrats. And so that's why I call upon Pam Bondi and federal authorities to come down here and make Minnesota their vacation home and apply all their resources to rooting this corruption out, pursuing answers to the tough questions, doing a little Sherlock Holmes, and ensuring that even though we're never going to get total accountability, we can at least go after the worst and most insidious actors.
Let's talk about that a bit more, these political connections. These are on record with the Feeding Our Future fraud alone. State Senator Omar Fateh, running now for Minneapolis mayor, connections with the Minneapolis City Council, with council member Jamal Osman. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison met with several people involved, and that recording, it seems, speaks for itself.
And so this has my attention. I'm extremely frustrated by it, but we are in the middle of a battle with the agencies now. And I can tell you this, Walls agrees with me that this piddly, stupid stuff running small people out of business is terrible. But it's the but he knows that there's a lot of unfair, discriminatory stuff going on with East African businesses.
Man, State Farm made $104 billion. Progressive made $61 billion.
It's crazy how they
You
put
think
it,
that's by accident?
They want to put it predominantly on one community, and it honestly hit a lot of communities. It wasn't just the African community, and I'm talking about the Somalians, I'm talking about the Ethiopians, because we've seen this shit in black neighborhoods. We've seen this by black leaders who have done this with BLM, who have done this with the NAACP, who have done this with black churches. So we can't think, but why don't the city council people want to investigate it? Why don't the police want to investigate it? Why doesn't the attorney general? Because they're included in it. If you watched Bobby Champion's ethics, because he's had two, right? But if you watch these ethics committees, why doesn't anything ever happen with them? They just talk about it and then bloom, 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 bam. That's it. The same thing when it came down to Nicole Mitchell. We all knew this was going to come down to it, that she was going to get jail time and that she was going to be found guilty. But yet she was still up there making decisions for Minnesotans. That's what I will never understand. I will never understand, right? And I know she's at least got it, because here's the crazy thing of it is, right? I know that she's at least got to do 2 years on probation. At least 2 years on probation, which she should. And a lot of these people, that's the crazy thing of this is like, there needs to be some accountability in the black community. It's not just that we can do all day in the African community, but how does that really affect us when we already know the shit that they do is already fucked up? Because how many businesses or how many nonprofits have been shut down? And the same thing with blacks. Now we call them support groups instead of nonprofits. Come on, man. I know y'all ain't as dumb as y'all look. You know what I'm saying? I hope there's really, really some smart people out there and you're not indoctrinated by a system. That's one thing that me and Charlie Kirk do agree on, is that people with degrees or people with college educations, especially when it comes to political science, I believe in my eyes that those people are indoctrinated. If you're not out here being a free thinker because you're not thinking, if you're going by everything that they've ever taught you, if you're not freely doing it, come on now. And the crazy thing is, if you look at Minneapolis, if you look at Rochester, if you look at St. Paul, if you look at Duluth, Owatonna, right? You see those areas, man, I'm telling you, there is a lot of fraud in Rochester that is not being talked about. There's a lot in southeastern Minnesota when it came to the senior citizen homes down here. We really need to have some conversations, but people don't want to do that. And the crazy thing of it is that I do believe it wasn't just the Somalian community. It wasn't just the black community. It was the white community as well, because I can tell you right now is that there was people who were getting paid. Didn't matter if it came down to feeding our future. I'm just saying that because of the feeding our shit. But didn't matter if it came down to any of the COVID monies that was released. It didn't matter if it was unemployment fraud. It didn't matter if it was everything, literally PPP loans. Everybody was out here. This is the one crazy thing of it is, because there was a lot of people that actually tried to get up and do stuff instead of just trying to get rich off these PPP loans, and they still wouldn't even give to people that were honestly because of their backgrounds, right? But then they knew people that would in BLM, didn't matter if it was in any of those, but they literally knew how to get around it. And why weren't people calling that shit out? Because why are you gonna bite the hand that feeds you? Because I literally know motherfuckers that were getting all kind of unemployment checks from California, PPP loans. Shit, motherfuckers got a $38,000 grill in their mouth, all from a PPP loan. Come on, man. This, like, you're not doing shit for your business. A lot of this money, first of all, it was only around because of COVID. And a lot of people took advantage. A lot of people took advantage of that because you're not going to be able to prosecute everyone. And they knew that. So it didn't matter if it came to the politicians, because as long as they have control of that area, they, just like with the trifecta, if we don't have And I'm totally against this in a lot of ways, but I feel like that is the only way it will bring balance in Minnesota, is that if we had a trifecta in the GOP, I know it's never going to happen, but I do believe that it's something that we need to set Minnesota straight, to put us back in the position to do what we need to do, because we're nowhere in position to come back out of this. We're not. The taxes are going up, the levies, we're being taxed on so much shit. And then people's wages, they're putting prices up, but our wages aren't going up. People have to really, really think about that. You know, tomorrow isn't promised. Next year isn't promised. A lot of people could be homeless, you know, and that's the one thing that I can tell you, that is a majority of Minnesotans live paycheck to paycheck. I'm just being honest. We live paycheck to paycheck. We don't be out here splurging and you know, we do that sometimes, but there's consequences. You have to have priorities. You know what I'm saying? And I think that these people, I'm not going to just say Democrats, but I think politicians took advantage because they were in control. They knew that the DFL was in control. Now, I think if we had a Republican Minnesota Attorney General, I think it would be different. I think if we had if Ryan Wilson would have won instead of Julie Blaha, I think it would be a lot different. But we'll never know, because that never happened. It didn't happen. And even though I felt like Ryan Wilson should have won against Julie Blaha, the fact that it didn't, and it saddened me, because to see that, just to look at all the money, you know, do audits on all these departments, and because he had an R beside his name, I think that really, really hurt him in North Minneapolis. And I hate to say it, you know what I'm saying? But I think that is the truth. And that is a conversation that we need to have, is why do Republicans do worse in our neighborhoods, in our communities, but we let these people that want to let men be girls, be furries, all this weird ass shit. That's what I'm, and here's the crazy thing. I know, here's the thing of it is, I know for a fact there's a lot of black men that aren't okay with that shit. That aren't okay with that shit. They're okay with you being who you want to be as an adult, but not doing it as a kid. And I think we're seeing more and more in that. And it's going to be weird in November, you know, the mayor's race, to see who wins that. But not only, oh no, that's next year. Never mind. I'm talking about the Hennepin County attorney. That is next year. But yeah, that people really, really, really need to think about that.
The Attorney General, you know, telling this group that he would fight state agencies for money on their behalf. And the fact that it's interesting that Ellison never seems to provide comment or be at any of these press conferences. And also, you had something to say about Governor Tim Walz as well, his lack of action with creating a position for oversight, and now sort of doing this in the wake. What is your perspective there on all of these political leaders in Minnesota?
Well, I think Walz and Ellison in particular are definitely worth intense federal scrutiny. Why is it that whenever we see these theatrical actions taken by the Walz administration, it's always in reaction to one of three things? It's either in reaction to a media report that comes out that exposes that this fraud is happening, or it's a reaction to a federally announced prosecution that grabs all the headlines related to all of this fraud, or it's in reaction to us for having the audacity to ask questions and talk about it. Those are the only times when he ever decides this is something I really care about. These are not indications of a good faith actor. And then on Ellison, you've got a guy who, as you pointed out, is on tape meeting with people who were and later convicted of defendants in the Defeating Our Future trial, who his abiding concern throughout that recording, never once does he ask about the people being served. Never once does he express concern about the integrity of services. Never once does he say, what are we doing to help folks on the ground? What his concern is, overwhelmingly, and that of the people he's talking to, is keeping them in business, keeping the money flowing. That's a giant red flag.
On a side note, we wanted to ask you about this as it's making news as well, Representative Hudson. The chair of the DFL lying about the horrible assassination of Charlie Kirk, saying that it's a right-wing conservative that's responsible, in a tweet that still remains to this day. We have Ilhan Omar, a sitting U.S. Congresswoman, state senator, all sharing posts on social media blaming Kirk for his own death. So that's the question. Do you think effective representation without compromising public safety is even possible when politicians are making these kinds of statements? You know, has your feeling changed here over the last couple weeks with all that's happened?
Absolutely, unavoidably. Because what has come to light, what we've come to realize by what we've observed over the past week since Kirk's assassination, and more importantly, the response to it from people of status, Congress people, my colleagues in the state legislature, nurses, teachers, professors, people who have some degree or another of a position of influence and stature in our society, who have come out and said, to one degree or another, this guy deserved it. This guy was a bad guy, dancing on his grave. What that tells me is that the social contract has been amended.
Crazy. Crazy.
Written down anywhere. It's the things that we thought we could take for granted when it comes to how we interact with each other as human beings. One of those things is, I don't want to see you dead. Like, generally speaking, every person should, in their heart of hearts, hold the conviction that they don't want to see other human beings dead. Even in scenarios where the death might be justified, like a police shooting, or a case where the military is taking action, or whatever the case may be, the death that results from that is still a tragedy. And we should all agree with that. We should all agree that human beings should be alive, regardless of what they think. But apparently that clause in our unwritten social contract has just been struck through. It was struck through without our knowledge, and the last week has revealed that there are, in fact, apparently tens of millions of our fellow Americans, our neighbors, walking amongst us, teaching our kids, performing medical procedures on us in hospitals, writing our laws, who don't agree with that, who think that, when some people die, it's a good thing. When some people die, boy, they deserve it, specifically because, not because of what they've done, but because of what they think, because of what they believe, because of the things they say. Past that point, to the heart of your question, it is impossible to maintain an ordered society. I can't sit down across a table from somebody who would celebrate my death, mock my wife, and wish ill on my children. Like, that's a non-starter, right? We're not doing that. And yet that quite literally is the position that I find myself in as a result of being an elected legislator in the state of Minnesota. Is that I am now forced to share spaces with, we just elected another one this week, avowed communist who put 8647 on social media. So I got one more I got to deal with. I got to share a space and engage a debate with somebody who thinks the death of their political opponents is on the table.
Scary reality. State Representative Walter Hudson, can't thank you enough for speaking out. Again, you're one of the good guys, one of the brave ones. I hope people will follow you on X. It's at Walter Hudson, but appreciate you taking the time to listen and to speak with Minnesotans. Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, there's so much that I want to say. Especially when it comes down to, there's a lot of things that I do want to talk about. Right? Trump just said the other day that he can't forgive his opponents. Your party, our president, just said that he hated his opponents at Charlie Kirk's memorial when he got up there and gave a eulogy, which was more, in my eyes, like a political theater than anything else. The same thing with Turning Point yesterday. I'm not going to get on here and be like, they don't have the rights to be able. They do. They have the freedom of speech. But you have to understand is that speech and that freedom comes with consequences. I understand that. I understand that the things that I say come with consequences. But I understand that. And I stand on everything that I've said. I don't hide from it. I don't duck from it. But here's one thing that I will agree on Walter with is that we in society are walking around with people that really could care less if we died or not. All right, and probably would celebrate. That's the kind of world that we live in nowadays. Is that it's not just kumbaya on our streets. It's that even if they consider you a Republican or if they consider you a Democrat or progressive or socialist, or you want to put yourself as trans, and we are living in a society that they do walk among us. Everybody walks among us. So I definitely do believe that we really need to look more into that and even have that conversation, because yes, our neighbors may actually be an opponent. But is that an opponent? Because to me, in my eyes, the way that you're viewing it or the way that it's been being said, it's no different to me than a gang war on the streets. We're fighting over dumbass shit, all because one side is red and the other side is blue. Flags, colors. So how is this any different? Republicans and Democrats. That's one thing that people need to have a conversation about. Now, I want to go to, they held a meeting last week and they talked about, this was on September 18th, and they held a shadow hearing on Trump's immigration policies and impact on families. And one thing that I wanted to talk about is because Pramila Jayapal, she came out vocally and said something. And it's crazy to me is that we can call people out and it doesn't mean nothing to nobody, because there's some people that believe it, depending on your politics. It's not if you like or dislike, but it's all comes down to politics.
Good morning and welcome to this morning's shadow hearing entitled Kidnapped and Disappeared, Trump's Assault Destroys U.S. Families and Communities. This is our third shadow hearing in a series of hearings that I've been holding on how the Trump administration is destroying our immigration system and trampling our constitutional rights by kidnapping and disappearing people of all immigration statuses, including U.S. citizens. Today, you will hear a few of these stories and learn how this impacts all of us, our economy, and who we are as a nation. A few housekeeping items before we begin. While today's shadow hearing is not a formal hearing, I plan to operate it as if it were, with opening statements from our witnesses and 5 minutes of questions from each of our members. We have a timer right here to help folks keep track of the time, and we'll do our best to alert you when your time is up. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. I would like to welcome all of our witnesses today, as well as the members of the Judiciary Committee and members from the wider Democratic caucus, to today's shadow hearing on how the Trump administration is destroying U.S. families and communities. I think it's important to start with this undeniable fact. Donald Trump lied to the American people. He lied when he said that he would bring grocery prices down. He lied when he said he would release the Epstein files. And he sure as hell lied when it came to immigration enforcement. President Trump said that he would focus on deporting the worst of the worst, that his administration is focused on serious national security threats. But we know that that is not the case, and that the American people see right through this deception and lies. According to a CBS poll, a majority of Americans believe that the Trump administration is not prioritizing the removal of dangerous criminals and public safety threats, and nearly 60% disapprove of how the Trump administration is using detention facilities. ICE's own data revealed that roughly 65% of people in immigration detention have no criminal convictions. Instead, they're targeting everyone that they think they might be able to deport, including veterans, farm workers, green card holders, students, and U.S. citizens. Tom Homan, the president's so-called border czar, said that arresting non-criminals is, quote, our job. And Stephen Miller's quota for 3,000 arrests a day is driving ICE to indiscriminately arrest people at any cost. In Los Angeles, ICE has been racially profiling people, kidnapping and disappearing people, causing fear and terror in people who simply look Latino, speak Spanish, speak English with an accent, or happen to congregate on certain corners. In Chicago, we've seen President Trump use imagery of going to war with an American city over its immigration policies. In D.C., Los Angeles, and now in Memphis, we have seen the Trump administration call in the National Guard to aid and act as support for immigration enforcement. These actions set an extremely dangerous precedent and are a huge waste of resources. And around the country, we have seen out-of-control ICE agents and other law enforcement agencies terrorize communities through over-the-top enforcement actions. Oftentimes, these agents are masked in unmarked vehicles, refusing to identify themselves, bashing in car windows, and conducting what looks like a kidnapping. This indiscriminate immigration enforcement has led to an increased number of family separations. According to a report earlier this year, more than 400 children have been sent to the Office of Refugee Resettlement Shelters from the interior of the United States. In some cases, parents are being told that their children will be taken away unless they give up their right to a hearing and to their country of birth. In other cases, children who arrived as unaccompanied minors are being sent back to government shelters for months after they had already been released to vetted sponsors. The Trump administration has done everything it can to demonize immigrants and to paint them all as criminals. And it is having a terrible effect on our families, on our communities, on our economies, on our country. Fortunately, the American people have not fallen for this Republican propaganda. In fact, public sentiment approving immigrants and immigration is back to one of the highest percentages we've seen in recent times. They have not turned their back on immigrants and immigration. We have seen over and over again that people do support immigration. This summer, a Gallup poll noted a record high 79% of U.S. adults who say immigration is a good thing for our country. A Pew poll showed 60% of Americans disapprove of President Trump's suspension of most asylum applications, which was ruled unlawful in a federal court. Of course, the Republican majority has not held any hearings on this topic. And so, as the top Democrat on the immigration subcommittee, I intend to hold my own shadow hearings. And that's why we started this series, and we are so grateful to all of you for being here to help hold the administration.
See, and that's what it always comes down to, either Democrats or Republicans. In my eyes, it should never be like that, but that's how America is. And I want to get into, I have another story for you, is that a pastor is talking about these far-right groups down in Tennessee. And I want to talk about that. So I got a story here about it, and I want to play that.
Hate has no home here. Seems like a harmless message, but now in a major escalation following the Charlie Kirk assassination, a far-right pastor is calling on his critics to take down those signs. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rory Johnston.
And I'm Carrie Sharp. That pastor, Andrew Isker, is part of an effort to establish a Christian nationalist community here in Middle Tennessee. Now he's equating those hate has no home signs with a call for political violence.
At the same time, he's calling for vengeance against people he perceives to be his enemies. Our chief investigative reporter, Phil Williams, has been monitoring this group that is planting roots in Jackson County, about 90 minutes northeast of Nashville. And Phil, this is really quite an escalation in the rhetoric.
It is, and you can understand. Andrew Isker is understandably horrified by the assassination of Charlie Kirk. But while he's calling for the left to tone down its rhetoric, he doesn't appear to be ready to do the same.
Blood cries out from the ground for justice.
In this sermon posted online, far-right pastor Andrew Isker, who's leading an effort to establish a Christian nationalist community in Jackson County, Tennessee, expresses anger over the murder of conservative activist Charlie Kirk and the response of some liberals, arguing that now is not the time for America, in the words of Jesus, to love your enemy.
This great evil must not be tolerated. It must be rooted out and eradicated.
And in a post in a Jackson County Facebook group, Isker compares himself to Kirk, saying his views are more or less the same as the slain activists, and claiming that as a result of what he calls irresponsible reporting, he has received multiple death threats. I checked with both the Jackson County Sheriff and Gainesboro Police, where Isker's office is located, and both said he had never reported any such threats to them. Still, Isker takes aim at the hate has no home in Jackson County signs that have sprung up around the area, telling his neighbors that those signs, quote, mean you support violence against people you hate. He adds, if you really believe the rhetoric needs to be toned down, you will show it by putting these signs away.
We're building a town. We're building a community there.
Our News Channel 5 investigation has drawn directly from the words of Isker and his podcast co-host C.J. Engel. Isker has downplayed the murders of 14-year-old Emmett Till, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd, and he has declared that the very concept of racism was literally a creation of communists. He has repeatedly mocked members of the LGBTQ community, saying here that the answer is to put these people in jail.
This conversation probably is piqued a lot of interest for a lot of people. And
the podcasters have platformed guests known for spreading anti-Semitic notions, while Isker has dismissed anti-Semitism as a 20th century slur. And here in a podcast titled, Guys, You Gotta Get Over Hitler, he agreed with far-right Christian pastor Joel Webbin that Jews should be treated as second-class citizens, in his words, as foster children.
They get to ride in the car.
Yeah.
And be treated respectfully in the car, but they don't get to drive.
It's like having a family, and you have foster children in your family, right? You wouldn't even give your own children the credit card or the family budget, but you're definitely not giving it to the foster child.
But like the uproar over late-night host Jimmy Kimmel, Isker argues for going after journalists who say bad things about people like him.
Media organizations who accuse Christians of spreading hate or fascism or white supremacy or whatever slurs they wish to use, they must lose their broadcast license and be subject to broadened defamation laws. Extreme action must be taken.
And on X, Isker shared a post from an account that demands declare a state of emergency. Every leftist needs to be purged from every institution, remove them from their positions, confiscate their assets. The post continues, the Democrat Party needs to be declared a criminal organization, freeze their assets, remove their politicians from office, strike down their laws. And if that sounds like Isker is ready to abandon democracy, he doesn't seem to care.
Nowhere in the Bible does it prescribe liberal democracy as God's form of government, as the ideal form of government.
As for his future here in Jackson County, Isker's words regarding those no-hate signs are ominous. Gainesboro is my home now. I am not leaving, he writes. If the hate is me and I am not leaving, no home here means the only way I don't have a home here is if someone kills me. And in a podcast that ran late this afternoon, Isker doubled down even more on his rhetoric, saying, quote, when you accuse someone of preaching, they are saying, I hope somebody puts a bullet in your neck. That's what that means. As for his call for vengeance, he does make the point in that sermon that he doesn't think any individual ought to go out and seek vigilante justice on their own. Instead, he argues that the Trump administration should be doing that job, which we've seen recently. There may be some inclination to go after people whose speech they don't like.
Well, Phil, Andrew Isker talks about toning down the rhetoric as some of his not fans toning down their rhetoric, but has he, as a pastor, someone who should be really in tune with humility and love for others, has he shown any sign of toning down his?
None that I have found. And in fact, in that podcast that I just watched moments ago, he calls for journalists to be shaking in their boots.
Crazy, 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 crazy. But that really shouldn't surprise people, because that's what kind of America that we voted for. I think a lot of people stayed out of the elections because they didn't want to get involved. And to me, elections have consequences. And we have to figure that out, is that elections have consequences. And until we figure that out, we're going to keep on hitting these bumps in the roads. So I have one more. And yesterday, Trump came out that aspirin and RFK, they believed that Tylenol caused autism in kids, that they were going to show that link or whatever. But to me, I think we've always, I can't say about Tylenol, but I really do believe this is going to cause a lot of friction in politics, not only just in politics, but in our neighborhood and our communities as well, because this is going to be a hot button topic. Is because are a lot of parents at fault because they didn't believe the science, or they didn't believe or they didn't think that it was true? I know autism has blossomed in the last, I would say, like 15 years, because now I think it's like 1 in every 81 Americans can get autism now. I'm like, damn, that's kind of, it used to be like back in the day, like even 10 years ago, it was 1 in 1,000, and now it's in double digits. And I think people need to pay close attention to that and see where the links are, because a lot of things that we take are no good for us. Some of them take it to, like me, I take medications because of my stroke and brain bleed. I take a medication for my thyroid. I think if I didn't take a lot of that shit, I probably wouldn't even be alive. So some people are taking meds to, stay alive. But is that going to hurt us in the long run? And I think people really, really, I'm not having any more kids. So I don't care about that part of it. I shouldn't say that, because the Tylenol part and causing autism, I think we need to take a deeper look at it. And just because a person's politics, like Trump or RFK, don't look at the messenger, read the message. That's what I want to say. Don't read the messenger, read the message.
This is Breaking the News. I'm Janice Shortle. President Trump said a few hours ago the active ingredient in Tylenol is a potential cause of autism in kids when taken during pregnancy. Now, most scientific research says that is wholly unfounded, and the maker of Tylenol clearly strongly disagrees with the president on that statement. Here's Heidi with the story.
So I've been waiting for this meeting for 20 years.
The Trump administration claims taking acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol, while pregnant may increase the risk of autism.
The science is far from settled. There is no definitive answer.
Dr. Hugh Taylor, professor and chair of OBGYN at the Yale School of Medicine and Yale New Haven Hospital, says more research needs to be done.
There was a large review published earlier this year that looked at all of the studies ever done and showed a slight tendency towards an increased risk of autism with Tylenol use. But there have been other very large studies that have contradicted that and shown no increased risk.
The meteoric rise in autism is among the most alarming public health developments in history.
The CDC says about 1 in every 31 children is diagnosed with autism. But experts say reasons behind that include a broader definition of autism, more kids getting screened for the condition, and a better understanding that autism can be transferred genetically from parent to kid.
Today, the FDA will issue a physician's notice about the risk of acetaminophen during pregnancy and begin the process to initiate a safety label change.
Medical experts say acetaminophen is the safest painkiller during pregnancy.
Take it when needed, but don't take more than necessary.
Ellie Wilson is the executive director of the Autism Society of Minnesota.
This is the same administration that has systematically been breaking down vital resources related to Medicaid, related to special education, related to workforce development, all of which are things that would dramatically improve the lives, the safety, the inclusion of autistic people.
The Trump administration also suggested a form of folic acid as a treatment for autism symptoms. The company that makes Tylenol strongly disagrees with Trump and told they're deeply concerned with the health risks this poses for expecting mothers, saying acetaminophen is the safest pain reliever option for pregnant women. Jana.
Yeah, this was something the Trump administration announced late this afternoon, right? So not too clear what Tylenol can say at this point, other than what you shared.
Right, yes. And there's much more that Tylenol has stated on this, and they've referenced different medical organizations that have talked about it as well, and we'll have that linked at care11.com.
Okay.
That's interesting, because we really, that's the crazy thing that I will tell people is that we don't honestly know. Even the health insurance about to go up. That's the whole thing of it is I'm so tired of the fear mongering. I'm so tired of the politics going back and forth and not listening to the majority of people because we're not stakeholders. I think we really, 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 really need to have a conversation. We need to have a back and forth and not about politics. Keep politics the hell up out of it. I'm going to be honest. Keep politics as far away that you can, because a lot of this shit is crazy, crazy, crazy. And I still don't understand. It's like, why don't people see it? Or are they a part of it? Because I think so many people, they look at it, but they don't really see it as an issue because it hasn't affected them yet. And I just want to say that it is going to affect people at some point. Doesn't matter if you're in a rich neighborhood, it doesn't matter if you're in a poor neighborhood. It will affect you. Doesn't matter just because you don't live in Minneapolis or St. Paul that it's not going to hit you. It is, because they're making people spread out. So I think people really, 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 really need to look at that. I'm gonna get up out of here, same time, same place tomorrow. I'm gonna really get into Lower Town Project in Rochester, and I'm gonna talk about affordable housing and the difference between these AMIs and the reality of people wages. So I'm gonna get up out of here. I'll see y'all tomorrow, same time, same place. And here is Dave East, Papoose, Never Was the Problem, featuring Jadakiss and Fabulous. And I'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. Out of here.
This sounds like a crisp beat.
Something to love, I'm learning. Yeah. We all need it. Look, before the clique go pop, we was some bad niggas. I know you bleed just like I bleed. Why would I fear you niggas? Lately too much on my mind, so I don't hear niggas at all. Bitches never get my time, I know they share you niggas. Teachers acted like they cared, but I ain't care, nigga. Mama told me life was hard, this shit ain't fair, nigga. In my lifetime, volume 1, that made me hear ejected. Pistols like iPhones, now we carry them with us. Talk about some foreign shit, they taking pictures. Run them down. Foot, I know about chasing niggas dying every day. You can't erase spirits. B12, 10 on glass, try to race it, nigga.
This is thugger to the tomb. I promise you, I've been that motherfucker since the womb. They tough, but when you see them, they sing a different tune. Everybody real to a real one walk in the room. Run up on you with the 245, you niggas doomed. All you hear is boom, shaka laka shaka boom. You thought I was gonna stop, you's a buffoon, asshole. You know what they say about those who assume. Fake friends mad, you won't feed them with a spoon. But when you shoot them, the doctor gon' feed them through a tube. Niggas say they love you, but do they really know what that mean? That mean behind their back, you don't talk about your regime. Your man getting money and you not, you don't scheme. You just happy to finally see him live his dream. Your boss go broke, you still ride with him, king. You don't pack your bags and go jump on another team. In 2021, who released more songs than me? Don't give a fuck about your crown, it belong with me. I used to hold your hand, taught you how